I've been in the construction industry for over 40 years. And looking around the audience, yes, I'm certainly the oldest person here by a few years, in fact. So my experience goes back before the days of PCs in the office. Sorry, I mean, when I was doing some design work early on, I mean, we had a calculator and that was about it. But I'm the past, you're the future, right? And what the next couple of days are of great importance, I must admit, because what you're developing needs to be conveyed, disseminated, shared. Because part of my presentation, if you notice, it's not good. I have got ICT, although I will be covering 2 ICT projects. One is Script, which is a sustainable building portal that's been developed at Cardiff University. Because of issues with the industry, basically, in the UK, it's because small companies who will come to a minute don't know what information they have. How do you disseminate? How do you share? And the other one I thought about is work with Cardiff City as a capital, because they're certainly proactive in what they want to do. There are economic issues, I will admit that, but let's just quick run through. But I have to be very boring for a few minutes, folks, and apologies for this. There are some interesting background, I'm afraid. Okay, the legislation regulatory process very quickly from the UK and Wales. Let's deal with the UK. Yes, the 20% reductions, 20% renewables by the year 2020. Yes, applies. UK want to actually have schools and houses zero carbon 2016, public sector buildings zero carbon 2018, the rest 2019. Interesting. What is zero carbon? Because at the present moment, people are confused about what is zero carbon in actual fact, because a lot of the current computer modeling is based on basic energy, yes, but the regulated energy, heating, lighting and ventilation, not the unregulated stuff, not the computers, not the projectors. And that is really zero carbon. There's also another part that is that embodied energy is not in current calculations. You know, zero carbon, yes, it does imply embodied energy because a lot of energy is used in the products. Some of the products used in buildings actually probably have generated more greenhouse gas emissions than the actual building will emit for its life. And that has to be borne in mind. But at the moment, there are zero carbon sort of requirements. But Wales has gone a little bit further than the UK. Because what we want to do is to try and drive things forward under a regulatory system, and we're using BREEAM and the Code for Sustainable Homes. There is resistance, and this is being used at the moment for the planning legislation, because building regulations, Wales will have its own building regulations next year, which will be advanced of the UK, so we wish to move on. Sustainability is the heart of the Welsh Government agenda. It is a key driver. But there are aspirations about us, and an aspiration in a regulatory process, it's got knock-on effects. I'll just say zero carbon aspiration. The other one that the Welsh Government has got is a 3% CO2 reduction on a year-by-year basis. That is what they wish to have. But there are so many areas that have to be addressed. Training and skills, materials, technology, yes, it has to be all brought in. The design, it's an all-encompassing sort of aspect. It isn't just merely delivering something, creating a model. Yes, you have to disseminate it, you have to get people to buy into it, you have to do it. And I will apologise for the next slide now because it's a terrible one, but I put it in any case. Because that's really what it creates. I hate to say it, it's, oh yes, you've got the regulatory framework, environment, waste and everything else. But you've got all the other knock-ons, you've got training, you've got quality. It's a spider's web. You can tell I've been around it a long time because, to be quite honest, yeah, I've been project managing construction schemes and infrastructure schemes for almost, well, 30-odd years of my 40 years in the industry. I brief contractors, I brief engineers, designers, architects in actually sort of what we can produce. As a matter of fact, I have to admit, I'm only here for a few hours this morning because I have to be in London tomorrow. Because I work for Cardiff University, but I'm also doing some work for the Welsh Government on project management of schemes. And one of them is a large office, which is a little sad. I retired 4 years ago, but I'm back. Which is have been resurrected, which is a worry because people have retired. Lots of knowledge has gone out in the industry. My department disappeared virtually, apart from about 4 or 5 people a few years ago. So I'm back project managing a scheme, but tomorrow is a 9,000 square metre grade A BREEAM excellent building. We're trying to get a tenant to take occupation of it. He wants an energy efficient building. Yeah, but what does he mean by wanting an energy efficient building? He's thinking of an EPC. Okay, an EPC is back in the regulated energy again. But it's an operational building. And it needs to move on. There are lots of companies now that are buying into it, they want more, but the models that you are working on, I have to stress, yes, they're important, they have to be, it's useful and relevant. I'm a practical person, okay? I'm not a researcher. Yes, I can use a computer, yes, but I don't do computer modeling. But let's stress, you're the future. Let's get away from the technical slide. Right, organisation structures again. Sorry to be a bit boring about this. Within the UK and Wales, there are lots of umbrella organisations, Royal Institute of British Architects, British Chartered Surveyors, umbrella organisations looking at distinct design areas. But in Wales, population 3 million, there's just over 100,000 people in the construction industry, all areas of construction industry, whether it's designers, manufacturers, builders, or whatever. 90% of those work for companies of 10 or less. They're SMEs, small and medium enterprise, or a lot of them are micro SMEs. How do you convey information to these people as to what is needed in the future? I mean, immediate reaction in lots of cases is, oh, if you improve standards, you raise prices, you costs. Can't be done, no economic return. It's wrong. In some areas, yes, but they have to be clever with design. They have to use what you're designing, what your systems, models, but they have to have credibility, they have to be consistent, they have to be deliverable. Whether it comes to the regulatory process or whether it's by other means, you have to share. There is a need for change, yes. Energy prices going up. So how the UK goes, there's a simple thing about security of supply as well. Because I think in about the year 2016, I think we're only going to generate about 5% more than what we're actually consuming. We're all using more energy, so we have to drive it. But I'm dealing with a building tomorrow. Yes, but the building can be a pepper potting. You're dealing with districts, communities, the wider areas, and that's where the real benefits are. Some of it may be costly, but it has to be done with. There are various barriers, data and knowledge. When we're doing the script project, we'll come to afterwards, Cardiff University, we met a wide range of individuals and firms, various companies from the construction sector to try and find out what they wanted. All right, what do they need? There are regulatory framework, but how do what is needed really? Where is the industry going? There are costs, there are all implications. And they came up with this data and knowledge. To be quite honest, data, information, there's a lot of it around, the phrase goes. I'm not going to go for those, but if some of those companies, SMEs, sadly have to Google, I wish them all the best of luck. Because that's what you get. Well, you know that in any case. Well, what they did come up with was they could a map of everything, which was interesting, but interesting concept. But that's what came up with the workshops. They wanted information. Well, where did they go? There are lots of sites. Yes, islands of knowledge. But it's a sharing of information is needed. It's the sharing. Do you go to a particular site to gain some information for someone else? And lots of these small companies, they're the designers. They're the people who are going to deliver projects in the future. It's not me, I'm the past. They're the people who are going to deliver. They need that information. Where do they go? And that's a part of script about it. There are economic issues, I accept that. A couple of years ago we met about 30, 40 house builders. We wanted high level in the industry as well. We wanted to raise standards with the code for sustainable homes. Well, the barriers, my giddy aunt, I mean, it was code 3 would cost that much. Raise to code 4 was more. Code 5, well, it didn't bother discussing code 6. It wasn't worth the effort. There was a resistance, and that is part of it. We have to get past that. The clients and employers, they're the ones who control the money after all in many cases. Tomorrow's meeting, for example, at least there is a tenant, an occupier who wants to move forward. He has green credentials. Yeah, but not all clients or employers have. They're looking at the bottom line. So what you're coming up with, designs, yes, they need to be practical. The manufacturers, the technologists, they all have to be part of this. It's a jigsaw of pieces. You have a lot of pieces. You need a picture in a box actually to actually work it all, put it all together. It is crucial. And then a wonderful thing called behaviour. Human nature, it's a wonderful thing. Resistance to change. I mentioned about the house builders. There is this basic resistance. But how do you demonstrate? People really need to be changed actually from behaviours, from this, oh, we can't, or whatever. They have to want something. They have to expect it. They have to expect higher quality buildings. They have to expect lower energy prices, or at least energy that prices will go up. It needs to be converted to that. And that is a difficult problem. There is the resistance. Some people do actually want to proceed with energy improvement of properties. So we go back to the economic aspect of part of this as well. But what you're doing is and I have to stress this, and I've repeated 17 times, I'm sorry I'm boring on it, it is important for the future, it is key for the regulatory and the whole industry side throughout Europe. We have to move forward. But information has to be shared. Because we have to get the doubters to actually accept it, want it, expect it. Incentives, I'm not going to go through this very quickly, it's just Green Deal within the UK, there was the Green Deal, but that's relating to, I try to improve existing properties. Because when I mentioned the regulatory process earlier in the UK and Wales, it deals with new buildings. What about the existing buildings? What about refurbishments? Unless they're refurbished, requiring consequential effects because of expansions, the standards don't have to be free up. Renewable energy tariffs, they have dropped actually in the UK for different things. I've got I'm not being clever, but I've got 4 kilowatts of PV on the roof. Okay, it covers the roof, I must admit, that's 16 panels, they really do. Not the most aesthetically pleasing, but why do they do it? Well, personally at my age, I'm not worried about an income for the next 25 years, because I don't think I'm going to be around for the next 25 years. You know, who knows? They go with the house. But I thought it's needed. I thought it'd be a bit of a hypocrite dealing what I'm doing with Cardiff University, an energy project, not to move forward. And various insulation measures. But some people want to do that, but there's cost. But there is a cost of energy. And that's one of the end. What gets people interested is energy prices, security supply, can they guess? That is where we have to really give an incentive more. Matter of fact, or do we go down the penalty route, use more energy, increase the tariff? To deal with the script project, I mentioned earlier, this is it's a web platform, and it comes about because of the workshops we had with various people across the industry on the sharing of information. Because with the economic problems, there have been issues with the sharing of knowledge. Because I regard knowledge as power in many cases, and in the commercial world, people don't want to share knowledge because you come to us, the information's on our website, whatever, and so on, you go there. And we were trying to break a barrier. But the script project does break it in many respects, but people still have to try and accept it, because all we're trying to do is share information. Anybody who goes to the site can actually go to the company, can organisation, manufacturer, supplier. We're not trying to take over. This is not a replacement. Just a screenshot of part of the site. Each of these widgets, okay. But what they're trying to do is actually sustainable design tools. There's a fair number of those. Sustainable sourcing. We've got BIM on it. Building information modelling, because in the UK, building information modelling is going to be required on public sector projects from 2016. At the moment, a lot of the industry, and I mean designers, don't quite understand what it really means. And certainly for clients, good point. Yes, okay. But the building again, and we'll let it in tomorrow, will utilise BIM. It's going to be the first in Wales to actually do it, probably, in this process. But it's a requirement. We need to move on. There's an education side as well. There will be problems, but it's education. But the idea of these widgets, it's not to replace people's sites. It's trying to do the map of everything in many respects. I've shown there's 12 widgets here. There are actually about 19 on the current homepage. But the architecture behind this, which has been developed by Cardiff City, Cardiff University rather, you could have an infinite number of widgets. So if people have particular interests, if companies want to a link to their own website, want to demonstrate their part of this, a sustainable building portal. It's not purely about energy, it's the whole area, it's the social aspects, environment, it's the whole area. But trying to get people to accept it is interesting. This project is coming to an end from a funding viewpoint, which is, this has been part funded by the Welsh Government. And we will be looking, it will continue, but we're looking at now commercial opportunities to move this forward. That is being looked at. It's not going to die, but we will continue. But it has to be embraced. Does the industry want this? Probably not. Does the industry in Wales need it? Probably. And that is, we have to do it convincing. People can create your own homepage. If you're not interested in some of the widgets, you can close them down. When you register on it, your home page is then created next to it around. There's a calendar of events. Even the calendar can reflect your particular interests. Because if there are courses, if there are various things you should be attending or going, it's flexible. You can actually create it. But the ontology behind this is a construction industry. But the architecture behind it, Cardiff University, could actually be used by other sectors. Just have to change the ontology. But if you do a search on this, the difference between this and others, like Google, it's not going to rival Google, by the way, it's not no way it's going to take over, it's not the intention. But if you type in, say, heat pumps, for example, it actually breaks down against all the widgets. So it doesn't just go against a massive one of 2 million or something. It actually will go against whether there's legislation, whether it's anything to do with the documentation, examples of projects. If there's nothing on that particular widget relating to that particular topic, the widget's closed. That's the search mechanism that Cardiff University came up with. So it's flexible in numbers. People can create their own widget, they can do whatever they like on it. We can give administration rights over a particular widget to a company. But again, it's funny with the barriers. I've offered a couple of contracting companies say, well, do you want a widget? Because it's the snowball down the hill of it, trying to pick out somebody to actually sort of start the process, because once one starts, the others will want it. Oh yes, well we have a website. Yeah, but trying to find information on your website is frightening. If you notice on here, there'll be hyperlinks to documents. I've tried to avoid, because I'm the one who puts the information in the moment, so I don't design the site, don't ask me about the design, the architecture behind it, nothing to do with it. I'm the one who puts information on it. And what I've tried to do here is not, where possible, give a hyperlink to a site. Because once you start linking to sites, click, I think you've lost the will to live at that point. You don't know quite where you're going. You're looking for a particular document. There's a hyperlink to a document, specifically. And it's a little bit different to the Google part in that there's probably a sentence or a paragraph on that actual document. So somebody can look at it, look at the basic text. It's not just a word search. Look at it to see whether it's relevant to what they want. If it isn't, they can move on to something else. They don't have to go and open the document and read it for a while. The problem is I'm the one who's having to do that at the moment, which is a bit sad. This is meant for useful and relevant information. And what I've been asking people, if they know of anything, to provide me with the information, to share it, to put it on there. There are PDFs. I don't like putting PDFs on there because they get outdated. They pass their sell-by date, replaced, defunct. It's still there. But if I don't have a hyperlink, I'm having to do it. But that's a script project, which is purely ICT. It's coming to an end now as far as funding goes. But yeah, it will continue. We want it to grow. We would like people actually. So at the moment, it's a bit Welsh orientated because obviously it's funded from Wales. But there are examples of good practice projects in America, documents from Australia. There's all over the place because good practice is good practice. It's information. It's relevant. And it's also trying to stop a lot of these tiny companies that are just searching things from here. I'd like to deal with Cardiff city itself. Cardiff, I must admit, it's a nice picture, must have been a very clear day, like we've even got some water that's blue, it's not always blue. Population, about 340,000 people, slightly smaller than these. Over the next 20 years, they anticipate expanding by 40%. They're currently using more of the Earth's natural resources than they should, like most capital cities in actual fact. But they're going to expand. They need over that 20-year period 45,000 houses. They need to employ an extra, or provide employment for an extra 40,000 people. Currently, at the moment, there's around about 75,000 people travel into Cardiff every day to work. And about 25,000 people travel out of Cardiff to work. So, yes, transportation, all the things. But they want to be a one-planet city by 2050. That is their vision, that's their aspiration. That is what the authority want to do. Right? It's a challenge. You're expanding, but you want to spend millions and millions on infrastructure, it's extending things, using even more energy. You can't. And this is where, from your district, from the future cities, and so it's relevant to what you're developing. So please move on with some of them, because I think they need it. But what's happening at the moment, there is a waste-to-energy plant currently being constructed. It should be operational by next year. It's going to provide about 20 megawatts of electricity to the grid, but it also has about 50 megawatts of heat energy available. And the distance, it could actually cover quite a wide range of areas in Cardiff. But at the moment, what the company is looking at is obviously the cost of digging up all the roads, basically, high infrastructure cost, to actually promote this district heating system. And they want people to sign up to it over quite a period of time, but have to demonstrate, have to look at the costs. That is being investigated at the moment, because if they don't use the 50 megawatts of heat, what the provider will probably do is, instead of generating 20 meg of electricity, you've got a 30 meg, and probably lose the heat. Heat is a bonus. In this case, the calculation, the business is done on the 20 megawatts of electricity. The heat is a bonus, it's a benefit that it can be used by the city. It can certainly help them. It can sort of reduce infrastructure. It can twist, maybe move the infrastructure around a little in that sense. So instead of perhaps having to spend more money on providing infrastructure in other areas, can we actually look at utilization? Can we be clever at balancing supply and demand? Because that's one, because we are working with Cardiff City on a number of projects in actual fact. One of them deals with improvement in buildings. Another one is actually water. Trying to balance supply and demand for water. It's utility and it's a requirement. And expanding city, what are you going to do? You have to balance it. There's a lot of waste at the moment in water. So we're trying to be clever with this. There's another project working with this. We have looked at another project of balancing supply and demand in energy. Renewable systems, something else, because I mentioned about the waste-to-energy plant. Cardiff are fairly proactive. They are going to install a turbine in one of the rivers. They are looking at using, I'll say waste ground or land that can't be developed for large areas of PVs. They currently have, as Cardiff City, between their own housing, education, their own offices, they have got a portfolio of property. And they've got several hundred meters installed for energy monitoring at the moment. But they have to change, because it's not real-time data. They get printouts. They get a printout of today of what happened yesterday. That's not efficient, and they know they have to change. So they have aspirations, they want to move forward. They need the tools, they need the weaponry, they need the money as well. But that's, which I'll come to in a minute. Because this is another project, Cardiff City, although we work with Cardiff and BRE, and Nick is in the audience, and the Welsh Government. I'm trying to look at let's look at the future of the city, the smart city of the future. What does it need? I'm sorry you can't read it, but I'm not going to go through it. But it's trying to look at, there's a huge amount of data at different levels. And they vary, it's variable, but it interacts. I mean, for example, part of, there are various areas in Cardiff, for instance, in health terms. Yes, people live 12 years longer in a more affluent area than in another area. There are issues about sort of security, yes, mention the health, there's issues of education, transport, energy. But it's not just merely horizontal. As you can see, there's a whole interchange across the whole level, but demands a large amount of data analysis. This project was being put forward for the Future Cities scheme last year. It wasn't successful with that, I must admit. But I think in reality, to try and deliver this over a very short period of time would have been, to say a challenge, would be an understatement of life, I think. But what Cardiff wished to do is move on in stages with it. They have to take it in stages. There are economic requirements. This project, in actual fact, would cost, and that's generally very quick run through of picking up the data, the actual machine, if you like put it that way, to actually drive it, to analyse it, to look at the goals, the targets, what we really want, and the Cardiff City Observatory. There would be a cost to this, and I must admit to actually deliver it was, let's just say, several £1 million. But you can see the way Cardiff want to move forward. They see ICT as a real benefit. You're dealing with, not on the energy side, this is far wider. This covers the transport, it covers the health, it covers the education. It's trying to link people, but it's the key to it is it wants to involve the people. The people have to embrace this, they have to be part of it. It wouldn't be something that's dropped on them. It provides them with knowledge, yes, smartphones, anything else, they'll be able to pick up data. It's an ambitious project. But 20 years' time, Cardiff will be about 40% bigger than it is now. It's something they can't ignore. There are so many problems building up, but there's a vast amount of data behind this that has to be sorted. They will have to do that in stages. And they have to be aware, as they take up in various stages, the interconnection, interoperability, it all has to be built in. And that is part of the key. And what you're dealing with is this system. I'm opposite an end, folks, to be really easy. The future. Yes, I mentioned the need for ICT systems, yes. And you're delivering these, or hopefully you will be delivering as part of these projects. They're important. You know, we have to change. We have to aspect of city life and services. It has to be. I mentioned earlier about the need to embrace change. It will need a lot of work to be done and across the population generally, not just the business side. Individuals have to be involved in this change. They have to expect it, they have to want it. They have to need it. Dissemination is key. I don't quite know what your dissemination methods are on the project, but we couldn't put on it. I am dealing with Renewable Energy project, for a presentation on that later. Yes, you're looking at commercial aspects, you're looking at dissemination later. But I think looking at the document, the number of projects you're involved with, that's far wider. That's serious dissemination, that's serious involvement with a whole range of people. You're going to be sharing information over the next couple of days, which is vital. And the EVO Champions. Yeah, I mentioned about Cardiff City. Yes, the local authority acting as a champion. They want to move forward. They have a vision. They have various things they want to do. Yeah, but you're the champions, really. You're the future. You're the ones developing these. You're the ones trying to share this information. Say, I'm the past. You're the future. And you have to drive it forward, but you have to bring everybody along with you. And that's the bit. I mentioned earlier, industry in Wales. Small companies, very small companies. How would you actually get companies to be aware of the tools they should be using? Yes, the real benefits, that's the key to it, it's a benefit. You know, what are the benefits? How do you actually get those? Are the tools free? I don't know, I don't talk about those. That's for something else. Do the tools form part of the regulatory process? Yes, but we wear the regulations, because the industry is always, in Wales and the UK generally, they will build in accordance with the regulations, but they have no incentive to go further. especially if it involves money, unless they have a client that wants to embrace things. And that's where the difference is. But with lots of engineers, currently, and I'm briefing in this project tomorrow, I suspect the building is going to be designed more in the past than the future, which is unfortunate. And I say thank you very much. Well, I hope I haven't bored you too much. My apologies about going in the past. I say I'm from the industry. I'm not familiar with specific area, which is very interesting to present to an ICT conference. It's quite interesting, really. But I have to stress that you have to share information in this. You will, I know, but it is key to the future. In so many areas, and there are lots of islands of knowledge at the moment, but they are islands. You've got to link with them.